Hello and welcome to this two-part tutorial series, which was quite hard to say that, I got that third time. In this tutorial series, and again, it's going to be two parts, we're going to be building this system here. So, I've got a little cheat button here to give myself skill points. And then we've got a set of skills here. We've got tier 1 skills, tier 2 skills, and tier 3 skills. We can't buy the Fox's Cunning skill yet because our prerequisites aren't met, and we need to get the Bull's Strength skill before we can buy that one. So if we come up here, we can see this is Bull's Strength. I'm going to hit purchase on this one, and you can see our skill points goes down and our strength goes up by 10%. Our strength was 10, it's now 11 because it increased by 10%. And we can actually now buy Fox's Cunning, which increases our intelligence by 2 points, and this costs 4 skill points, so we will purchase that. And our intelligence has gone up to 12. And we can see this one, Owl's Wisdom. It increases wisdom by 20%, and it also increases our intelligence by 1 point. So we can actually increase multiple stats with one skill. It's not like a one or the other type thing. And this also requires Bull's Strength, which we bought, so we can buy Owl's Wisdom. And finally, you can see we've got some abilities as well, so like double jump, dash, teleport. So it's not just numerical stats we're increasing here, we can also unlock abilities through our skill tree as well. So if we come down here, and these pictures, I just found a pack, they're not related to the abilities. That one kind of matched, and I suppose that one matches, but yeah. There's no frog in this picture, but this is the Frog Leap skill, which grants the double jump ability, and we need to make sure we've got Owl's Wisdom. That's the prereq. So that was that one, which we have purchased. So we've got Frog Leap grants the double jump ability, and we'll purchase that, and we can see the double jump is now unlocked. So obviously there's no gameplay to this. This is just the talent system we're building, and it's using the UI Toolkit, Unity's new UI system. So part 1 of this video is going to be the programming of making all of the logic that goes into the skill system, and then part 2, which will be a separate video, is going to be using UI Toolkit to build this simple UI with the buttons and the displaying our stats, our actual skill buttons in this sort of tree format. If that sounds like something you're interested in, then obviously stick around in this video and do the programming, and make sure you subscribe to see the next video, which is going to be all about the UI. With that said, let's just jump straight into the video. Okay, so let's get started. I'm gonna make a new project in the Unity Hub, and the editor version that I will be using is 2022.3.18F1, and I'm just going to use the 2D core template to keep things nice and light, and we can name this the Skill Tree Tutorial. And I'm going to go ahead and click Create Project. Okay, so our blank Unity project is now set up here. And there's no packages that we need to install because the UI Toolkit, especially with this version of Unity, just comes built in. It's right here with UI Builder. But before we get into the actual UI of it, I want to actually get the stat system coded and working, because it's actually very simple. It's a really simple system, and it's just got a few scripts, and I think it gives you a lot to build off of if you want to make it more complicated. But yeah, as you saw in the demo at the start, this system will let you increase stats like strength or stamina or whatever it is, as well as unlock specific abilities like a double jump or a teleport or a dash, and it's all the same system. So the first thing I will do is I'm going to right click create, and I'm going to create a folder, and I'm going to call this underscore scripts. The underscore is just so it's always at the top of the folder here. And we'll go into here, and I'm going to make another folder, and I'm going to call this our skill system. And we'll go in here, and I'm going to create a new C# script, and I'm going to call this the player skill manager. And I'll zoom in here so you can see my scripts nice and big. So the first thing we want to do in the player skill manager is define what our skills actually are. So for this game, I'm going to say there's kind of D&D stats. So there's strength, dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, charisma, constitution. I'm going to say there's 3 abilities that the player can unlock called double jump, dash, and teleport. And we'll also want to keep track of skill points, which is how we're going to purchase abilities on the tree. So let's start this. So I'm going to make a private int, and we can say here strength, dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, charisma, and constitution. And you'll see then this autocomplete kicked in. I am using GitHub Copilot. It just really speeds up my workflow, just so you can see that again. So I started to do underscore, we've got player skill manager, and because it knows kind of what I've been working on recently, it's just assuming that I want to implement these stats from the demo project. And that's what I really like about Copilot, is as you work on a project, it starts to learn, what your scripts can do, what they are sort of capable of, some of the methods and functionality, and it really, really speeds up your workflow. For this tutorial, I don't want to keep relying on it, so I am going to turn it off. I'm going to have to hit restart to restart the IDE, so let's do that. Okay, so Copilot is disabled, and I will zoom back in here. So we want our strength, dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, charisma, and constitution. So you see how much I'm struggling to type now. I'm just so used to it just knowing in my brain what exactly I want to write. We've got private int, and these are going to be our skills. So we've got double jump, dash, and teleport. So these are our unlockable abilities. These are our stats. And like I said, we're going to want some skill points as well. So private int, skill points. And these are all private. We're going to want to have a way to kind of get the values out of them, but we don't want to accidentally change them from outside of the script. So we're going to use public properties to get these. So we can say public int strength, and we can return underscore strength. And you just need to do those for all of these private stats up here. So we've got strength, dex, intelligence, wisdom, charisma, constitution, as well as skill points, which we could put a bit of a gap between them to keep our code organized kind of into this. And then we also want to have some bools that just say, is double jump unlocked? Is dash unlocked? Is teleport unlocked? And we've defined this as an int, but we can actually return in our public property a bool. So we can say public bool double jump, and we can say that that's true if double jump, the int, is greater than 0. So at some point we'll unlock a skill, we'll up the int for double jump from 0 to 1, and then it'll be greater than 0, so we know that double jump has been unlocked. And we can do that for dash and teleport as well. And again, so this is going to be very dependent on your game. Like, not every game is going to have double jump, dash, teleport. Instead of strength, dex, intelligence, wisdom, blah, 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 you might have, stamina, hunger, breath, if you've got like a swimming mechanic. Like whatever your stats want to be, then obviously you can replace these with your stats. And again, abilities like double jump or swimming, or the frisbee ability or the bow ability, like whatever that is, you can define them here as ints, but then return bools when that int is greater than 0. And then we've got our skill points, which we want to get. And we want to get these to show them in various places, such as the UI, but you might also want to get them in your in other scripts. Like if you had a combat mono behavior on your player, that would probably want to know what the strength is to modify some sort of damage from the weapon, possibly. So yeah, this is just a good way of being able to come back and get these, and it's a safe way that you won't accidentally change them unless you mean to change them by unlocking an ability. So underneath skill points, we can make a public Unity action, and that's going to use the Unity engine.events namespace, so make sure that's up here. And this is just going to be on skill points changed, and we're going to call this Unity action every time our skill points get updated. And we can get rid of the start and update functions. So obviously skill points is going to start at 0 unless we we could put serialize field here and then set starting skill points in the inspector. But you're going to want some sort of method that you can call to gain a skill point, whether that's like when you level up or if you pick up a skill point in the world, like however your game wants to handle skill points, there's going to have to be a method for gaining them. So we'll do public void gain skill point. And in here, we'll just say skill points ++ on skill points changed, and then we can invoke that. Now for the other methods and some of the other variables we need to put onto this, we're going to need to make a new class, and it's going to be a scriptable object called scriptable skill. I'm actually going to get rid of a serialized field here, and instead what I'm going to do is in the awake function, I'm just going to set skill points equal to 10 for now. And in fact, we can set all of our skills just to a default value of 10, and we'll give ourselves 10 skill points as well. We're not setting the double jump, dash, or teleport. We want them to be unlocked, so they'll be 0. Okay, so let's go back over to our Unity project and we can make a new script. Okay, so in our scripts folder, underneath our skill system, I'm going to right click, create, add. I'm going to choose Unity script. And again, this is a rider feature. Whatever your IDE is, you just need to make a new CS file, C# file. But I'm going to click scriptable object, and I'm going to name this scriptable skill. And all that does is it just knows that it's to derive from scriptable object instead of mono behavior. And it fills in some of the kind of like bump for you, like it just automatically puts the create asset menu tag at the top. So I'm just going to say file name skill or new skill. And for our menu name, I'm going to say skill system / new skill. And we can have the order at 0, that doesn't really matter. So we've got our scriptable object here, which is a scriptable skill, scriptable object. Just to keep this, you see it's also put it inside a namespace. Our player skill manager isn't inside a namespace, so we should probably do that. So we can say namespace _scripts .skill _system, and that matches the folder structure that we've got here. And if you don't know about namespaces, I'd highly recommend going to just do a little bit of reading about them. They're not complicated at all, but they're really handy to use. So we've got our scriptable skill here, and this is going to need another class to kind of work how we want it to work. So here I'm going to say outside of the curly braces of this public class scriptable object, but inside the curly braces of our namespace, I'm going to say public class upgrade data, and this is going to have a public int, which is the skill increase amount. So do we want to upgrade our strength by 10, for example? And I also want a bool that's public bool is percentage. So we can, with this flag, this bool, we can say the skill increase amount is either like a hard-coded 10, it's an increase of 10, or we can check that it's a percentage, and if it is, we can increase it by 10%. And just so we know what stat to actually upgrade, so whether it's strength we're upgrading or intelligence, wisdom, whatever, we are going to need something called a public stat types stat type. And obviously we've not defined what this is, and this is going to be a public enum. So public enum stat types. Make sure I've spelled that correctly. Stat types. And here I'm going to have stat types that just match what we've defined in our skill manager. So we've defined strength, dex, intelligence, blah, 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 double jump, dash, and teleport. So we've got strength, dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, charisma, constitution, double jump, dash, and teleport. So now we can say this piece of information, our upgrade data, we can say that it's a strength increase, and it increases our strength by 10% if we want it to be a percentage, or just increasing it by 10 in total, if that's how we want to go with that, if we want to go that route. Okay, so let's come back up to our scriptable skill, scriptable object. And here I'm going to have a public list of upgrade data, and this is giving us an error, and it's because we need to import systems.collections.generic, so we need to make sure we're using that. And I'm going to say public list of upgrade data called upgrade data. You could also use an array if you want, but I just like lists. I find them easier to work with. So yeah, we're going to call this upgrade data. These are yellow because the naming convention is wrong. It should be a capital U if it's public. So I'm just going to fix that here. Just to stop getting those errors. So we've got a public list of upgrade data, public bool, and this is going to be is ability. So is this like a double jump dash teleport? Is it an ability as opposed to like a stat increase? Then we're going to have something to define what this skill is. So we'll want a public string skill name. We can have a text area, and I'll just say 1 for, and this is the amount of minimum and maximum lines that the text area has in the inspector. And for this, I'll say public string skill description. We'll probably want a, we'll need a sprite for the kind of icon for the UI. So we could say skill icon. And then we could take in a public list of scriptable, I'm really struggling here, scriptable skill. And this is our skill prerequisites. And I'm going to set this equal to new list of scriptable skills, just so it's always accessed, we don't get any null reference errors. And in fact, I'll do the same up here. I'll say a new list of upgrade data. I also, for this system, I'm going to have a public int skill tier. And this will make more sense when we build the UI. But you saw how, you know, there's tier 1, which is the top level skills, and then the ones below that would be tier 2, and then tier 3 are the ones below that. So we can actually define where in our skill tree a skill is spawned. So we can say public int skill tier, and we also want a public int which is our cost. So we've got public int cost, and this is how many skill points it takes to unlock this ability. And we can actually generate our description sort of procedurally, just to kind of make things easier for us. But I also want to have a bool that just says, let's just overwrite description. So if we want to tweak the sort of like automatically generated description, we can check this bool and we can just type in something ourselves. We can completely override it if we want to put something different for a specific skill. So underneath cost, to do these kind of this automatic generation of our description, I'm going to have a private void on validate. In here, I'm going to have some checks first. So I want to say if our upgrade data list, if the count is equal to 0, so if we haven't put any upgrade data into our list, then we just want to return, because we want to generate the description based on what the upgrade, what upgrades this actually does. So if it's if this upgrades our strength and intelligence, we want that to be reflected in the description. But if we haven't actually put anything in here, then there's no point. The description won't make any sense because there's nothing to describe, because the skill doesn't currently do anything. And likewise, if overwrite description is true, then we can just return as well. I also want to say if skill name is equal to nothing, so if we haven't put one in yet, we can just default the skill name equal to the name of this file. So if we make the skill called, you know, like bears strength, it will automatically populate our skill name, but then we can change that if we want to call it something else without having to rename the file. And then finally, I'm going to make a new method called generate description. And I'm putting this in its own method because it's a little bit long, so we may as well try to keep onValidate as clean as possible. So we'll implement that, and that's just a void method. So in here, we can check to see whether our if our skill is an ability. Because if it's an ability, we'll probably just want to say something like X grants the double jump ability. Like skill name grants the double jump ability. But if it's not an ability and it can increase multiple stats, well, we can do that dynamically to say this skill increases these stats by this much. So first, let's check if is ability. And if it's an ability, we're assuming that our upgrade data is only going to have one thing in it. You'll just have one piece of upgrade data, and the stat type will be one of our ability stat types like double jump, dash, or teleport. So we can say if isAbility will access that upgrade data, and we'll get the stat type from it, and we can put here case stat types double jump, and we'll say skill description is equal to, and if we use the $ before our string, we can dynamically insert variables into the string. So, and they're done by curly brackets like this. So we can say skill name grants the double jump ability, and then you have to break, and we'll do that for dash and teleport as well. It's the exact same thing. I have to correct my capitalization on my copy paste. So dash grants the dash ability, teleport grants the teleport ability. If it's not an ability, so else, then we're going to want to start building a string based on the things that we've defined. So we can actually use the string builder just because it's a little bit more efficient and it's something that's good to know. And that's in the system.text namespace. So we need to make sure we're using system.text. So we're going to make a new string builder, and I'm just going to call that SB, and I'll set that equal to a new string builder. And what this does is it allows us to keep appending strings to our string builder, and then at the end we can convert that to, we can just return, we can call its toString method, and it's more memory efficient to do it this way instead of keep combining strings by using the plus. Than just like adding them together. And the way we do that is we use the append method. So we do SB append, and we're going to append the skill name increases, and then we'll put a space at the end. And then we want to loop over all of our upgrade data. So we need to do a for loop as opposed to a for each, because it matters. The index that we're currently at matters for how we build the string. So we'll say for int equals int I equals 0, whilst I is less than upgrade data dot count. And make sure the brackets are correct. And for, not if, sorry. So for int I equals 0, and while I is less than upgrade data dot count, we can do I plus plus. So here we're going to say SB dot append upgrade data at index I, and we're going to get the stat type from it, and we're going to call toString on this. So if our stat type is strength, this is going to start to read skill name increases strength, if that is what our stat type is. And then we can say SB.append by, so strength by SB.append and then we could do upgrade data I dot skill increase amount dot toString. And then we need to determine whether this increase amount is a percent or like a set number of points. So we can say sb.append. We can get our upgrade data I, and we can say we can check if it's a percentage. If it is a percentage, we will display the percent sign. If it's not a percentage, we can just say points, and I'll put a space between before the word points. And finally, we want to see whether the current index of this loop is the last item in the array or in the list, because if it is, we'll want a full stop. But if there's another thing in the list, we'll want a comma, because that's how punctuation works. So we'll say, is I less than upgrade data dot count -1, because remember, lists and arrays, etc. are 0 based. So upgrade data dot count -1. If it is, we'll want a comma. If it's not, we'll want a full stop. And then finally, before we leave the else statement, we can just say skill description is equal to sb.toString. Okay, so that is our skill, scriptable skill object. Let's go back into Unity and just see what all of this generate description actually looks like. So I'm going to go over to our tutorial. In our skills system folder, I'm going to create a new folder called skills. And in here we can store all of our skills. So if we right click create, we'll now see skill system new skill at the top of our right click menu. And you know, this is all blank, the description's blank, the skill name is blank, because we're still naming our ability here. So if I use bear's strength as the name, you can see nothing happens, and that is because the name doesn't actually get filled in until we've got some upgrade data. So we'll put that up to the top. And also you'll notice that the upgrade data list didn't appear, and that's because upgrade data, we've not marked it as serializable. So out just above public class upgrade data, we have to do system.serializable like that. Now Rider is showing us that these are serializable. So we go back to Unity. We've got bear's strength, and we've got our list here is empty currently, obviously, of upgrade data, and we've got our skill name matches the name of the file. And we can change that to, you know, we could have like cow's strength. It doesn't name the file, that doesn't rename the file, but if we wanted to change the file name to say like bull's strength, that will also not change the skill name, because we said in the code, we'll only change it if the string is empty. Now, if you want to, if you always want the skill name to match whatever the file name's called, all you got to do is get rid of the if statement. We'll just say skill name equals name. And then if we go back to our skill tree project, you can now see it has renamed itself to bull's strength. We can set this back to bear's strength, and skill name has been overwritten there. So if we take a look at our upgrade data list and we expand that, we can see our list is currently empty. So bear's strength currently doesn't do anything. If we hit the plus, we can then open up this, and then we can see we've got our step type, skill increase, amount, and is percentage. So bear's strength is going to increase our strength, so we'll leave that at strength, and we're going to say this is going to increase it by 5 points. If we wanted to, we could also say that it increases our dexterity by 10%. So you can see that we can have multiple pieces of upgrade data to have a talent affect our skills in many ways. It can affect one thing, it can affect 2, 3, 4, like however many things you want, and it can increase it in various ways as well. And you can see here that our description was automatically generated. So we've got our skill name increases strength by 5 points, comma, dexterity by 10%. If you wanted to be more like grammatically correct, you could check to see whether there's only 10 pieces, if there's only 2 pieces of upgrade data, and if there is, you'd put, instead of a comma, you'd probably and, so increases strength by 5 points and dexterity by 10%. And you could also see if the one that you're currently generating for, if the index matches one before the last one, and that'd say and as well. That'd probably, again, be more grammatically correct. So we can have a quick look at doing that. So here, instead of a comma or a full stop, we can say if I is equal to upgrade data dot count minus 2. So -1 is the last element in the array. -2 will be the second to last element in the array. So if it equals that, we can say sb.append and else we can decide whether we need to put a comma or a full stop. So that should work. Yep, so there we go. We've got increases strength by 5 points and dexterity by 10%. If we add a third one in, we can do intelligence by 1 point. So now it says strength by 5 points, comma, dexterity by 10%, and intelligence by 1 point. Well, it says points and then S in brackets. We just need to get rid of that in the code. There we go. So that's how you can generate a description using string builder in quite a nice way, I think. And it just means you don't have to manually type in a description for every single one. Again, we can't change that because it's on validate, but if we did want to change this skill specifically, we can say overwrite description and then, start typing in. If we uncheck that, it will reset it back to the default that we've said. Skill prerequisites, obviously we need some other skills. So here I'm going to go right click, create skill system, new skill, and we'll call this one Owl's Wisdom. So Owl's Wisdom is going to increase our wisdom by 20%. Let's just say that. So Owl's Wisdom increases wisdom by 20%. And to unlock Owl's Wisdom, you have to have already unlocked Bear's Strength. So we can say Bear's Strength there. And because this has a prerequisite, this feels like it should be a tier 2 skill in the hierarchy of skills, and this should be a tier 1 skill. And we can say this one costs 1 skill point, and this one will cost 3 skill points. So We'll build out a few more of these once we've got the UI up and running, but that is how this skill system works currently, of actually like defining what a skill is. Now we need to go back to our player skill manager and actually take in a skill and increase our stats in some way. So we can start adding more functionality to our skill manager. So for example, we can have a check to see, so public bool can afford skill. And this can now take in a scriptable skill, which we will call skill. And we could just return, do we have enough skill points? So we'll do underscore skill points is greater than or equal to skill.cost. We will also want a way to unlock skills. So we can say public void unlock skill. This will take in a scriptable skill again called skill. And we can use this can afford skill bool method. So we can say if we can't afford skill, then just return. Here you may want to like play a sound effect or something or do something else, but for now we will just return. And if we unlock the skill, we want to minus the cost from our skill points. So we'll just do skill points is minus equal to skill.cost. And we will want to add all of our unlocked skills into a list, because that way we can check through this list to see whether prerequisites have been met. So that prereq that we put on our scriptable skill here, we'll be checking a list of unlocked skills. So all of our unlocked skills, does that match? Do our prerequisites exist in that list? Because if they do, we've unlocked them, so we can unlock that new skill. And this is going to be a private list of scriptable skills called unlocked skills, and this will be a new list, scriptable skill. And again, this needs to be using systems.collections.generic at the top. So here we can say unlocked skills.add, and we can add our skill to it. We will deduct the cost from our skill points, and then we'll say on skill points changed, and then we can invoke that. So we can let our UI know, for example, that our skill points has been changed. But this doesn't actually modify our stats. So how do we go about doing that? So in our unlock skill function, we're going to make a new function called modify stats. So we'll say modify stats, and that's going to take in this skill here. And I'm going to hit Alt and Enter in Rider to generate that. So that's a private void modify stats, taking in a scriptable skill called skill. Again, our scriptable skill has this list of upgrade data. So we need to loop through all of our upgrade data and apply it as and when it makes sense to do so. So what we can do is we'll just do a for each loop. So we'll say for each upgrade data in skill.upgrade data. We can just say is percent, so bool is percent, and we'll just store upgrade dot, we'll store data dot is percentage, just so it's easier to refer to that instead of having to refer to data dot is percentage all the time. And then we're gonna make a switch statement based on the upgrade stat type. So we'll say switch upgrade, switch data dot stat type. So the first one we'll do is we can have strength, and I'm just going to put break in here just to get rid of the squiggly. So the logic for doing this, to keep this switch statement as clean as possible, I want to make another function called modify stat. And what this is going to do is it's going to take in as a reference the stat that we want to increase. So we can say ref underscore strength. So we're going to increase or modify our strength stat. And then we can pass in our upgrade data as well. And that's going to be modify stat, which doesn't exist. So Alt enter create method. And this is going to be a private void, modify stat, and it's going to use reference int, and this can just be stat, it doesn't need to be called strength, and then we've got our upgrade data here. And this is going to be quite simple. It's just going to check whether, and actually I realized from the demo scene that I did, we don't need this. This is a hangover from a way when I was doing this directly. This needs to be in the modify stat function. And then we can just say if is percent, then the stat. So our stat is going to be increased by our stat multiplied by our data dot skill increase amount divided by 100f. And we want to cast this whole equation to an int. So we need to cast that here. So our stat is equal to our stat times by our skill increase amount divided by 100. So let's just visualize that. So if our stat is 20, so our strength score is currently 20, and we want to raise this by 10%. The way we're going to do that is we're going to times our stat, so 20, by whatever skill increase amount is divided by 100. So if we've said we want to increase it by 10%, we'll do 10 times 100 is 0.1. So we're going to get our stat of 20 and times that by 0.1. So that gets us 2. So we're finding out here what 10% of 20 is, and that's 2. And then we're going to increase our stat by 2 because it's increased by our percentage here. And if it's not a percent, we can just say stat is plus equals our data dot skill increase amount. So if it's not a percentage and we're increasing our strength by 10, we're just going to add it to our strength stat, which is this reference here. And again, if you are confused by the ref keyword, I'd advise doing just a little bit of research into the difference between reference values and value values. Again, I can link some stuff in the description below if you need to learn more about that. So we just want to do that for all of our data types. So I'm just going to copy them in just to save you watching me do them. So actually this is data now, it's not upgrade. So for example, case wisdom, modify our wisdom stat by data, and we're passing in data. And actually here, instead of just doing them like this, we're going to do them in the exact same way. So modify stat ref double jump data. and this is the dash, and this would be teleport. Because if we had to just have this, even though it's very simple logic, if we had to put that here, it just get, for each one, it just get really messy. And if we want to modify it in a different way in the future, we can now just change this one sort of method. We're not repeating code over and over again. And actually, if we want to, we can make this even simpler by just doing this. So if is %, do this, else do that. And really, you don't even need this bool if you don't want. We could just copy that straight into here. And this is a very simple method now. But it just means we do not have to copy and paste that over and over again. And again, like I said, if you want to do anything else when you modify a stat, we can just now do that in this one place. So that's how to actually unlock the skill. So we can modify the stats, we'll add it to our unlocked skill function, we'll deduct our skill cost from the skill points, and then we can call our on skill points changed event. And we can just have two more kind of like handy methods onto this now as well. So we're going to have public bool. Oh, this needs to go outside this curly brace here. So public bool is skill unlocked, which takes in a scriptable skill called skill, and this just returns whether unlocked skills contains our skill. And we can also have a public bool prereqs met, which again takes in a scriptable skill called skill. And this is just going to return this here. So return whether our skill.skill prerequisites.count is equal to 0. Because if it is, there aren't any prereqs, so we can just say they've been met. And this goes first because it will always evaluate this first, and it wouldn't need to check the or if this is true. So if this is false, we can then we can go to skill.skill prerequisites, and we can say where all prerequisites exist in our unlocked skills list. So up here, unlocked skills is this list here, and this is a system.link function. So we need to be using system.link for that to work. And we're basically just saying if all of the skills that our skill prerequisites, if all of the skills in our skill prerequisites are contained within our unlocked skills list, then our prereqs have been met. There's one last script we need to make before we can move on to our UI, and that is a skill library. So under our skill system, I'm going to add another scriptable object. So add Unity script, scriptable object, and I'm going to call this the scriptable skill library. And here for file name, I'm just going to do new skill library. And for menu name, we'll do skills / new skill library. And this is just very simple. It's just going to have a public list of scriptable skills. And again, we need to be using our system.collections.generic. And we'll just call this our skill library. And here we're going to want just a function that returns a list of scriptable skills. And here we can say get skills of tier. And that'll take in an int called tier. And for this, we're just going to return, and we're going to again use system.link to use a handy function called where. So here we're going to return our skill library where, and then we're going to say skill and then we're going to get our skill tier. If that equals the tier that we've passed in here, then we can return all of those as a list. So skill library where our skills tier is equal to the tier that we're passing in. So where all of those exist in our skill library, we're going to put them into their own separate list and return them. So if we have 5 skills in our skill library, 3 of them are tier 2, and we call this method get skills of tier, passing in tier 2, is going to get all of the skills from the skill library where the skill tier is equal to 2. And that is that library. That's not that big a script, but it allows us to reference in one simple, easy place all of the skills in our project. So here, we'll right-click, create, skill. Oh, I should have said skill system. Ideally, we want these to be under the same kind of like dropout thing. So let's go to here. So we've got our scriptable skill is under skill system, and our skill library was just under skills. So let's just replace that with skill system in the scriptable skill library. We'll go back to Unity, right click, create skill system, and let's make a new skill library. We'll just call this the skill library. Now, this is quite a powerful thing. If your game has characters with like different classes and each class has different skills, then what you'd want to do is you could make like a ranger skill library or a fighter skill library, and then that's just a way to combine skills into one list, and these are all of the skills that belong to the ranger or the mage or like whatever it is. For this system that like here we don't have different like in-game classes, so we just need the one skill library, and that just means we can reference this scriptable object in a range of different scripts, and we can access its handy functions such as get skills of tier, and also just query the library if we need to. So I'm just going to add 2 scriptable skills to the skill library. We'll do bear's strength and owl's wisdom, and again bear's strength is a skill tier 1, owl's wisdom is a skill tier 2. So with that kind of bit of the code done, that's all of the actual skill system, all of the functionality to make skills and unlock them and spend points is there, but there's no gameplay sort of thing to back that up yet. If we hit play, obviously nothing happens. So we need a way to actually manipulate these. We need some UI, which is what we're going to do in the next video. Okay, thanks for watching. So in the next episode, we are going to be looking at building the UI system, like I said. Here is an example in our demo project. If you want the tutorial files for this project, they are available now over on Patreon, which is patreon.com/danposs, and you'll be able to download this demo project, which is already complete with the UI stuff in. You can get that right now over on Patreon. But for now, thanks for watching. Subscribe to see the next video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.